Welcome to the bright side of longevity. Join host Dr. Roger Landry along with co-host Danielle, Palli, and guests as they discuss the bright side of getting older through healthy longevity. Guided by research, this lighthearted and educational show will leave you with practical ways to brighten your life's journey.
Well, welcome everybody to the bright side of longevity. I am here with my wonderful colleague, Danielle. Danielle, how are you today?
I'm doing great. I broke the coffee and conversation. I've got my organic green tea with lemongrass and spearmint. I know you've got your coffee. What's better, coffee or tea?
Oh, I don't know. As far as health, probably tea. But they have not found a lot of bad things about coffee, and they've been looking a long time. So I think we're safe with both. And whatever it is that makes you engaged in the day after
You mean you're
sleep.
not going to argue with me given today's topic, what's better, coffee or tea?
I'm right. Yeah. You teed me up and I didn't take you. No, coffee. Absolutely. Coffee's better. Coffee's better. Yes. Today, we're going to talk about communication in general, and particularly this need to be right, which seems to be certainly over the social media. It seems like it's just gotten out of hand, and the people are crossing metaphorical swords and throwing insults. It's just it's accelerating. It's a good thing there aren't guns involved, although sometimes there are, because there's going to be World War III here. But we've always had a crazy uncle, right? Everybody's got a crazy uncle. So you have a holiday and they come and everyone seems to be okay and sort of enjoying the day and not talking about things that they know in the past have caused difficulty. And here comes the crazy uncle, and whether it's politics or sports or religion or, in my case, even directions, the best way to drive somewhere, because Laura and I drive a lot each year, and sometimes even with a GPS, we have conversations about that. But anyway, you get into a situation where each person with a view is intractable, and each has the absolute need to be right. This isn't a good place to be. You've been there, right? I'm sure.
Absolutely. And it's a difference between having just a hearty debate for understanding versus an out, knockdown, drag out argument, because you have to be, not only do you have to be right, but making sure that the other person's wrong and admit they're wrong.
Now that is the key, Danielle. That's going to be probably the last point we make in this part of the podcast, because that's what's really going on. It's not so much that you need to be right, but you need to convince the other person that they're wrong. And it really, now I ask people this, and I've only had maybe one or two positive answers in the thousands of people that I have asked the question. Have you ever convinced someone that they were wrong in an argument?
Very rarely, which blows my mind because, Roger, I think I'm right a lot of the time.
I give this advice. If you want to be a social rock star, give up the need to be right. And the lady raised her hand and said, "Well, what if you are right?"
Then this message is for you.
And so this is, I think we all get trapped and fall into this, but from a 5,000-foot point of view, it seems pointless, because it is very, very rare that you can ever convince anyone. And what does it do? It usually accelerates somewhat, and can end friendships, marriages, social gatherings.
Yeah, and people need to get there on their own. So it's not that people never change their mind. It's just you are not likely to change their mind. You can share your opinion and they can say, nope, I don't agree. I get this a lot with coaching, where I can see what I think will be the solution, but you wait until they get to that solution, and it might not be in that session. It might be several months later. So even in when you're talking about politics or religion or in relationships, people may change their own mind, but you're not going to change it for them.
We got to tap into all those coaching skills you have to improve communication. So let's do that shortly. But you brought up mindset. You know, we've talked about mindset before,
Hmm.
fixed versus growth. The need to be right and or to make the other person wrong. It comes from a fixed mindset point of view, and a fixed mindset is not one that is by definition changes or seems to be amenable to at least listening to the other side. You see the world usually as black and white, and it's not only maybe you inherited it, you saw it in your family, or you just developed some ideas about things that are fixed, even based upon a little experience. But it's more about what you require, I think, to be comfortable in navigating the world. Some people can't tolerate gray. Now, I've been around many decades, and I didn't start out as a growth mindset. I pretty much, like a young, passionate person, saw things black and white, but now everything is gray to me. I don't think I've capitulated. I think I've learned it. So yes.
I wonder if it's like a bell curve. You start off when you're very young as a teenager in your 20s, and I have all the answers and I'm always right. And then somewhere in the middle, you develop some flexibility, maybe do a little emotional growth. And then this is just a perspective. I'm curious what you think. When we get older, do you think we fall back into that? Like we've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, and now we go back into having that fixed mindset
I
again?
think that could be going on with what we're seeing in many, many older adults. They have decided they don't like the way the world is going, and they want to go back to the way it was. But I think in general,
Mm.
as we age, it doesn't go that way. I think when we're young, we're trying to develop and demonstrate competence. We were children. We had the mind of a
Mhm.
child, and now we're becoming adult and working, and we want to show the world and ourselves that we're competent and can and we know how to do things, and we see competence as being self-assured, so that you have an opinion and you don't want to find out that that is wrong. That'll wreck your competence, your confidence, and so it's really about not being able to handle being wrong, I think, as an underlying thing.
Which makes you wonder why can't you handle being wrong? What about being wrong? Like, does it hurt your self-esteem? Yeah, what's happening with the
I
needing
think it
to be right?
does. I mean, you probably see it in your coaching, and we're going to hear more about that. But I think it is. I think that you see the world a certain way, and if that gets shaken, if that if we're seeing it in
Hmm.
politics, we're seeing
Hmm.
it in so many things. If you allow that maybe you're not correct in this, then your whole world is shaken. And that it's not just this particular topic. It's about how you view yourself in the world, and your self-esteem, and your confidence that you are a competent person.
Yeah, it changes, I guess, your whole identity, your self-awareness, your awareness of your place in the world. It's interesting for me. I have my spiritual beliefs, and I figure at some point after I die, I will figure out if I was right or if I was wrong, and I'll be okay with it. But for some people, if you've devoted your whole life to one way of thinking and believing, and suddenly say, in the example of losing your faith, I can see where if you admit to yourself, I made a mistake all these years, then you're filled with regret and a whole bunch of other emotions. Like you said, it shakes up a person's identity. So I get why people stay fixed.
Absolutely. No, it takes courage to do that. But and perhaps when we get older, we don't worry about competence so much. We just we want the truth, and maybe that's what's happening. But but when it's going to shake your whole world, you defend it as if it was a fort. I mean, this is a form of violence when you're actually trying to get someone to realize they are wrong and you are right. And
Ooh, violence. What makes you
Well,
say violence? That's
usually you're
interesting
not punching
perspective.
someone in the face type of violence, or doing other damage to them, but it is bullying in a way, and it is
Hmm.
forcing your opinion on someone else. That is violence,
Yeah, it could be aggressive and verbally abusive.
So what's really important, in life? You've heard me. I've been on deathbeds, and what was the most important thing people said before they left the world? And it was about love and relationships. And this is not conducive to good relationships.
Nobody said, I wish I were on social media starting more fights with
Or I
people.
wish I wish that guy realized he was wrong, and I was right, or I think I've had people say I worried about things that just didn't matter, it was a tyranny almost. And I think that's why older adults tend to be a little more relaxed about this, because they're over the tyranny of thinking that they need to do things and be things. They're more accepting of who they are.
Yeah, and think one of the bright spots, I know there weren't many, but one of the bright spots of COVID is people really started to assess, hey, is this really important to me? What is
Yes,
important? What
exactly.
isn't
What's more
important?
important, this relationship that I'm having, or is it this need to be right? And you can sacrifice it. I because it really is all about relationships. And so, I think you said it earlier. Rather than needing to be right, we should be ready to allow others to have their opinion. You can
Yeah, or both be right. You can both be right in,
Well, it's right.
in your
Right,
beliefs.
right is in context, and the context is my life
Yeah.
and my world and my experience. And so, what I'm saying is perfectly consistent, but what you're saying is perfectly consistent too. Tea is good.
Yeah. With your needs, right? With what you might feel a certain way and it's right for you, and that's the boundary, the belief that you set. If your beliefs and boundaries are different and I can respect that, even if what's right for me is not right for you. And that's, I think, what people get tripped up is they'll think there's only one right way when there could be many
Yeah,
different
think about it
paths.
like a beverage, as something that maybe isn't quite as, I wouldn't say important, but at least as, you know, uh, provocative, provocative. And so, I mean, I don't know if everyone realizes this, but there is no set of taste buds that is the same in the world. With 8 billion people, we all have different set of taste buds. So when we say something tastes good, you should like it. We learn eventually that doesn't work that way. That something that tastes good to me necessarily doesn't taste good to you, or you don't respond to it the same way. And so it's that
Yeah.
realization. If we can go into any kind of discussion or conversation with the realization, this is a different person, different taste buds, different opinions, different experience, and let's share. But you don't have to believe the way I do. What do you think?
I feel as if I need to apologize to Merlot drinkers everywhere because I don't like Merlot at all. And I have long criticized Merlot drinkers. So this is my heartfelt
There you
apology.
go. There you
Your
go.
taste buds are
But I think
different.
I think taste is probably a good example, but you could carry it so many ways. How's this? I think if you're in a conversation, if you can first of all go in with the idea you're not going to beat this person into believing what you believe, but that say these words. You may be right. You're not saying they're right. You're not
Hmm.
capitulating. You're not giving up. You're just, I think, acknowledging you may be right in your context. You may be right. And I think that can save a
Yeah,
relationship. But you, on the other hand, being nationally certified positive psychology coach, there's some practical tips you must have for communication in general. Never mind this issue of right and wrong, but just relationships.
absolutely. And, before I even get into it, I wanted to touch on, if you don't mind, something you said about the fixed and growth mindset. because we've had discussions on the show about emotional intelligence. So from personal growth as a person, working on self-regulation, managing your emotions, working on your interpersonal skills, being flexible in your thinking and develop empathy, that's going to go a long way using these kinds of skills to creating better relationships, not just romantic, but friendships and work.
Yes, reducing stress in a relationship. We've been talking about that for some time, and this is important for resilience. When you are rigid, it's like a reed in the wind. If you're not flexible and can bend, you'll break. And so, emotional intelligence and mindset, these are important aspects. You're right.
Dr. Roger Landry is a preventive medicine physician trained at Tufts University School of Medicine and Harvard University School of Public Health. For nearly 2 decades, his focus has been on empowering older adults to experience a healthy longevity. He is the award-winning author of the book Live Long, Die Short, A Guide to Authentic Health and Successful Aging. Dr. Landry is an inspiring storyteller and presenter. His keynote addresses are powerful, entertaining, and optimistic. Learn more at livelongdieshort.com. So I have 8 tips that we
Oh,
can
eight.
talk about.
Excellent.
Yes.
All right. All
Not
right.
10,
Share.
because
Let
not 10.
That's Dave
Not
Letterman, and he's no longer around at night, so we can do eight.
we're going to do 8. So the first one, it sounds obvious, but we don't do it often enough, and that is practicing active listening.
What did you say?
Yeah, exactly. Practicing active listening. So it's being fully present, asking questions and paraphrasing to ensure that we understand. And when we have a conversation with someone after we hang up, even on this call, we might remember 25% of what we spoke about without replaying this podcast, which is why I encourage people to listen more than once. But within 8 hours, we lose 50% of a conversation.
Yes. Wow. I thought it was just me.
No, it's everyone. In fact, when I'm coaching, I'll tell people I'm taking notes to keep me on track. So if they say something and I want to circle back, I might write one word and I don't even lose contact with them because I don't want to be distracted by thinking about what I want to say in response. So if I write down the word and then I'm fully focused, because if somebody stops you and says, well, if I don't get this out, I'm going to forget. Well, guess what? You've just derailed the person that you're supposed to be listening to.
Danielle, if we were to lose electricity right now, we will have contributed a whole lot. You certainly have for me. I was in the military and I lost hearing from a number of reasons, a lot of hearing, and so Paula, my wife, says it seems to be getting worse. But I know that most of the time it's about attention. It's not so much I didn't hear it, it just I didn't process it, and my mind was somewhere else, and I wasn't an active and engaged and present listener. And if the world was like that, not only me, can you imagine? I mean, we'd probably get along better, the world, you know?
I think with social media and so much technology, there's a lot of good, but there's a lot of distractibility, which leads to tip number 2. And I'm guilty of this. I don't do it as well as I should. Speak as concisely as possible with respect and empathy. So concise because our brains can only pick up a few chunks of information at a time. And I tell people it's okay to say no to somebody. It's okay to disagree, but can you do it from a place of love and respect? If you respect the other person, I believe that even disagreements can be pleasant and you can grow from them.
I agree completely. And relative to conciseness, this is a way you can get people to not actively listen to you. If you drone on and tend to add things that aren't really necessary, but you're trying to tell every little inkling of the story or whatever. And so, good advice, very good advice.
And as a storyteller, I am guilty of that, of going down these rabbit holes. And I'm going to stop myself from doing that right now. Tip, tip number 3, we touched on this. Consider that no one is wrong. We have our different values. We can both be right or we can respect differences. So consider that no one has to be wrong.
You may be right. But it's true, as we talked about, it's all in context, and it's about getting through the night, each one of us. And what gets us through the night is what we have to embrace and hold on to, namely what brings us peace and engagement and sort of a joie de vivre. And we don't, we may want to share that with someone else so they experience it also, but that's not necessarily what would bring them joie de vivre, So
Yes.
be respectful. Absolutely.
And tip number 4, consider values and childhood beliefs, because when there's an argument, sometimes in a relationship, there's a need not being met or a fear, an underlying fear. And we touched on this, the fear of seeming incompetent, the fear of someone's self-identity being shaken. And I can give you an example in my own experience. I've worked with people who love to have political debates and they find it enlivening. And after the debate, they go about their day and they feel good. I do not feel good after that kind of debate. I feel really anxious. And it's occurred to me that in our household, there was a lot of anger and yelling. So I associate debating with that kind of arguing as traumatic in a way. And that's just my experience. So consider that people are bringing in their whole lifetime of experience into whatever their belief is. So we want to be, again, respectful and understand they're coming from a completely different world than what we may have come from.
Absolutely. I totally identify with you. I am not one for arguments or contentiousness. It's, not that I haven't had it, but it's just not how I want to interact with people. And so, and that's my reality. And my brother is one who loves verbal dueling, and my father was the same way. It never got heated, well, maybe a little, but it usually didn't. But when that was going on, my mother and I would go into the other part of the house because neither one of us liked it very much.
And tip number 5, avoid name calling and criticism. So speak to the complaint, not the person's character. So you can say, I'm really annoyed you left the dirty laundry on the floor versus you are such a slob. There's a difference. And we did an episode on relationships, Roger, where we talked about Gottman's 4 horsemen: criticism, contempt, stonewalling, and defensiveness. These are relationship killers. So if we can begin by avoiding the name calling and just speaking to the issue, not to the person's character, we would go a long way to communicating better.
Miles, absolutely. We talked about our self-esteem and our competence, and name calling goes, ad hominem. The Latin is that you go right at the person rather than whatever it is that maybe you disagree on or that is happening that you don't particularly agree with. And so it's not the person. It should never be the person. You are absolutely right. That's how you can have disagreements and yet still be people who like each other.
Yeah. Yeah. And number 6, try I feel statements. Now, this sounds corny. When I first present it to people in like coaching clients, it sounds like it doesn't make sense. You don't have to use the exact verbiage, but it gets you thinking about the words you're choosing. So an I feel statement would avoid an accusation such as you always, you never, why can't you just? You always forget to lock the door at night. You never do the dishes. Why can't you just be more agreeable? Whatever it is. Instead, we can try when you do such and such, I feel a certain way because, and here's what I prefer. Now that sounds muddled. The example would be, say, when you don't include me in your weekend plans with friends, I feel hurt and lonely because I feel like you don't enjoy spending time with me and I really want to be included. What can we do together? That's a little bit different from you're always spending the weekends with your friends. You don't care about me at all. You're so selfish. Little difference.
A lot different. We're basically throwing out the songbook of how most people interact. I mean, I would say almost everyone is guilty of that,
Yes.
probably at least once a week, if
Yes,
not.
agree. Myself included, I catch myself, you
Yeah,
know, like could you just? And I catch myself saying that I'm like, I don't I tell other people don't be that way. I don't need to be that way. So it starts with, when you do such and such, this is how I feel. And it comes from this is a personal need. It's not a criticism of you. This is what I need. And generally, when you come from that feeling place, it comes across as less aggressive. And generally, if you're in a friendship or a relationship, the other person doesn't want you to feel bad. So if you're saying, I'm feeling this way, what are they going to want to do? They're going to want to comfort you in some way if they're a feeling loving human being.
absolutely. It's much more authentic. It's empathetic. It's very empathetic because the other way is that you're again you're throwing darts at their self-esteem and how they run their life, and it's very personal. This way here, it's personal, but for you, and that's all you can communicate really truthfully. And so I feel you are correct.
And the last two tips, these are particular for marriages and relationships, but these are good for any relationship, friendships, casual acquaintances, neighbors, work colleagues. Consider number 7, what kind of problem solver are you? Are you avoidant, a validator, or volatile? So the bookends are avoidant, like I don't want to argue, I'll be the peacemaker, but then nothing's ever going to get resolved because I push it under the carpet until things blow up. Are you volatile, where you lose your temper, kind of like you're saying, Dr. Roger, about being violent and aggressive? And, do you go to these extremes, or are you in between, that validator, where you say, I'm not sure that I agree with what you're saying, but can you explain what makes that important to you so that I can understand? And just being willing to I'm validating, okay, you feel this way, and I acknowledge you feel this way, and I respect that you feel that way. I feel differently, but it opens it up to having a conversation.
What a different world you're talking about. Wouldn't that be wonderful? And it's not that hard. And I think if you just remember this and say, I'm going to be a validator, I'm not going to be the other type. And I want to, I want this relationship to continue. I want it to be stronger. And I don't want to be upset. I don't want to be fighting, whatever.
It
It's so
feels,
easy.
yeah, it feels awkward and structured at first when you're trying to rewire a lifetime of communicating a certain way. Just like when we talk about emotional intelligence, this is not a once and done. I think my relationship with my husband over we're going on 13 years marriage, 14 years together, and it's gotten increasingly better, where some people it gets worse. And it's not that we just do everything perfectly. It's like from day one to now, we constantly have to work and compromise. And people need to understand that there's no magic. You do this and then everything's perfect. Like we are imperfect beings, so we're constantly having to work on ourselves.
Boy, isn't that the truth? Maybe it took me 40, 50 years to really grasp it, but yes, no,
But
that's
but Paula thinks you're coming along nicely, right?
yeah, she does. She does. This is about emotions also. Remember the triad we talked about in previous episodes that our emotions are survival mechanisms to keep us alive, but also to keep us feeling good about ourselves and competent and feelings we have some self-esteem. And so emotions then are kind of automatic and can be a tidal wave, and they drive our actions. And so if we don't have the emotional intelligence to see what's going on, take a second to see what's going on, how am I responding to this? You will respond automatically, and it's usually not going to be in the interest of a continued relationship with this person. And so EQ, emotional intelligence, is absolutely important here. And I think the next one also, and in fact, all of them, there's emotions going on here. And these are emotions that we have to observe so that we don't allow them to drive us to do something that,
Yes.
a thoughtless thing without really thinking about it and using our higher brain, and just emotions. So this is all good.
Yeah, that was a perfect lead in to number 8. When tempers start flaring, or they call it flooding, we literally cannot hear the other person when we're that angry, when our blood pressure is up and we're losing our temper. And with emotional intelligence, as you said, we can have those emotions, but it's not the best time to respond to whatever's in front of us. So I usually recommend, if you're in an argument with someone and tempers flare, take a 20-minute break, because it takes about that long. And then, even if it's saying to say in a relationship to a partner, I promise we will continue this discussion, but I need 20 minutes just to calm down, and have an agreed upon time to revisit, whether it's 20 minutes, whether it's in 24 hours, whatever it is, and discuss it when you are calmer, if it needs to be. Not every issue, we mentioned about giving up the need to be right in the very beginning. Not everything needs a win or a solution when it's a belief. Sometimes there are, for example, if there's like a gridlock about a really important issue that you need to kind of pick apart, like, why is this important to one person and not important to the other? And can you do some perspective taking and find some kind of compromise? But not everything needs to have a solution, I think. What do you
Oh,
think?
at least not now. I have, I'm a procrastinator by definition, but when I have a problem or when I have something to do, I wait and then I do it when I'm ready. So no, they don't need a solution, or at least they don't need a solution now. And I couldn't agree more. And you said take a 20-minute break, but I know you're a big proponent of the vagal nerve and how important that is. And so
Yeah.
sometimes just a breath, if you can't take 20 minutes, just take a deep breath,
Yes.
one or two. And that not only gives you a moment, but that you get a vagal nerve stimulation, which calms you, the hormonal things going on in your body, and noradrenaline is working rather than adrenaline, so it's calming you down. And so wow, these are good points. You use them every day, right, with your coaching?
I try to use them every day. I try to live by them. Like anything else, we're human. I love the last point about adding in that breathing and mindfulness, because that's the number one at work. And that's not even necessarily that you're angry about an argument. Just when you're stressed alone, you have the same reaction, that stress reaction, to breathe and take a moment to calm down.
Well, as I said before, I think you just alluded to it again, that number one, being present, observing what's going on, in a discussion, in a contentious situation, in a stressful situation. Just observe what's going on, being present. That itself is hugely beneficial in a solution, or a sort of a medicinal thing to calm down the high emotions, or the whatever is going on that's acting as a barrier between the two of you, with good communication or with a group. You know, Danielle, I learn from you every time we do podcasts. So this isn't about you people. This is about me. No, it is, and I think that interpersonal relations, as I mentioned earlier, or deathbeds and things. These are the things. This is our bread and butter, so to speak. This is what makes life worthwhile. This is what we are as a species. Our ability to communicate and do it effectively and not let it get out of hand. This is This is living on cloud nine, not in the sense of they can't do it, or that it's difficult. It's just that it is a higher quality of life. So
Yeah. And it takes some doing, right? I don't want people to think like that I'm being all high and mighty and live this 100%. We all, I can give you an example. If I spend all day being fully present for each coaching call, and then I'm done, and then John comes in the room at the end of the day at dinner and starts ranting about his day, and I realize my eyes are glazing over, not because I don't want to listen to him, but you have a capacity. So sometimes, the compromise is I'm going to make dinner and decompress while you watch the news, watch TV, whatever. And then we come to the dinner table. It's like, okay, I've adjusted now. I can be fully present. That was a little bit of a tangent about my being concise. See, I failed that already. But the point is, this is constant work. This is not a once and done.
So this is empathy in the classic sense where you care about the other person, but it's empathetic to yourself too.
Yeah.
You're realizing that you're not at your best right this moment. So take a walk, so to speak, or a breath, or do something where you can quiet your chattering mind and just focus on something else. Be present. Well, this is great advice. This is a great session. I've learned from it. I think I never cease to appreciate the importance of this every day as I age. I feel it's more important. I'm going to write a book about this stuff, actually. I've started about the importance of being present and the importance about observing what's going on inside of you, and how it's key to health, longevity, quality of life, the whole ball of wax. And so that's how important I think it is. You've convinced me of that a long time ago, Danielle.
Well, I think part of the reason we get along so well is we learn from each other. You've been a fantastic mentor. You were the one who actually got me into positive psychology coaching through your mentorship, doing the podcast and some of the presenting I'm doing. So I like to think we learn from each other, and I will always be grateful for that.
I think our next one is our 100th podcast. Is that
I'm
right,
so
Dan?
excited. Yes.
Yeah. I think we got to make it a little lighter and, stories, some of our storytelling. Let's make it about storytelling.
Yes. I happen to know somebody who not only is writing a book, but has a fiction book coming out, if I'm not mistaken. And that
Oh,
would
well,
be both of us.
yeah, that's both of us. So, yes, I think that'll be a little lighter, and we'll have the metaphorical balloons and sound makers and glasses of tea and coffee. Join us next time, people. Thank you for joining us. Thanks, Danielle.
You've been listening to The Bright Side of Longevity with host and preventive medicine physician and award-winning author Dr. Roger Landry and co-host nationally board-certified positive psychology and mindfulness coach Danielle Palli. If you like the show, please rate and review and be sure to click to follow.